There have been many nights lately where I find myself tossing and turning and unable to sleep. On these nights, I wake in the morning feeling tired, moving through the day with limited energy. Occasionally, my sleep is disturbed by vivid dreams. I wake in the middle of the night feeling disoriented, disturbed. I'm troubled by the state of our world, by the war in Israel and Gaza, of course, and by the way that it becomes more and more difficult to hold on to hope for a safe, peaceful, and just future. This week's Parsha, Mi-ketz, opens with a similar scene. Pharaoh's sleep is disturbed by two dreams, and he is disturbed by what he sees. In his dream, Pharaoh stands on the banks of the Nile, when out of the Nile come seven cows. They are healthy and sturdy, and they graze together in the reed grass. Then seven other cows come up behind them. These cows are sickly and skinny and gaunt, and they eat up the seven healthy cows. Pharaoh wakes up, falls back asleep, and dreams again. He sees seven ears of grain, solid and healthy, but behind them sprout up seven more ears, which are thin and scorched by the wind, and they swallow up the solid ears. To me, this sounds like a nightmare. Jewish tradition has a ritual for responding to a bad dream. The Talmud teaches us that one who sees a dream from which their soul is distraught should go and have it interpreted before three people. So the ritual of the Hatavat Chalom is born. Hatava means to make good from the root tov. Chalom is dream. The Hatavat Chalom ceremony is a ritual of transformation meant to make the bad dream good. The dreamer gathers three friends, and they have to be friends, and begins by saying, I have seen a good dream. Then the dreamer and the three friends recite verses invoking transformation, redemption, and peace, and the dreamer closes with giving tzedakah. While sharing the contents of the dream are optional, the principle of the dream transformation ceremony relies on interpretation. A dream itself does not make predictions about the world and the future, but how we interpret the dream does indeed have power. Take this story from the Talmud's discussion on dreams. There were 24 dream interpreters in Jerusalem. One time, Rabbi Bena'a dreamed a dream, and he went to each one of them to interpret it. They each interpreted the dream differently, and all 24 interpretations came true. We could understand this story as involving supernatural intervention, or it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. In any case, our sages have taught that how we interpret a dream matters. Rabbi Jill Hammer, in her book Under Torah, on the Torah of Dreams, says that the place we go in our dreams is not only a place we go to visit, but a place we go to heal and to transform. In Kabbalah, healing is often called a tikkun, which means fixing or repair. You might recognize it from the phrase tikkun olam, repairing the world. She cites Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who said, each person must see themselves as if the world was created for them. And since the world was created for me, I must at all times be searching for the tikkun, healing, that is possible in the world. So too, Rabbi Hammer says, in our dreams, we may receive the gift of healing for ourselves and others. This is the work of dream interpretation, to take a dream, even a bad one, and listen for what is broken and how we repair. Pharaoh intuits that his dream matters and must be interpreted. So he sends for all of the magicians and sages in Egypt to interpret his dream, but none of them can interpret it. Finally, Pharaoh's cupbearer remembers that Joseph had correctly interpreted his own dream when they had been in prison together, and Pharaoh sends for Joseph. Joseph listens. He determines that this dream is a message from God about what God is about to do. The seven healthy cows are years of plenty, and the seven sickly cows and scorched grain are 7 years of famine. Joseph suggests that Pharaoh appoint someone to supervise gathering and storing the grain from the years of plenty so that there will be enough food to survive the years of famine. Pharaoh appoints Joseph, and of course, the dream indeed comes true. Now, this dream is a pivotal turning point in the Joseph story. It's what lifts Joseph out of prison and sets him as Pharaoh's second in command. The predicted famine, which spreads all over the land, is what brings Joseph's brothers down to Egypt seeking rations of food. It leads to the reconciliation between the brothers and the descent of Jacob's large family, Bnei Israel, into Egypt, where they will eventually be enslaved. I can't help wonder if there is something more we are meant to learn from this dream. The images of the healthy cows and grain being consumed by the gaunt ones are so vivid. There is something scary and clearly symbolic to it. The Maorei Naim, an 18th century Hasidic teacher, picked up that there may be something in the dream, not only for Pharaoh, but for us, for the readers. In classic Hasidic fashion, he takes the Torah text and looks for what it can teach a person about their own spiritual inner life. For the Maorei Naim, the 7 healthy cows represent virtues, holy qualities, like the ability to love, to be in awe, to overcome the evil inclination, to give thanks, and to integrate different values. Ideally, these are directed towards God and channeled through good deeds. He considers the symbolism of animals grazing. Why show this parable of human virtue through animals? Animals do not hate, he says. The cows feeding together among the reeds is meant to remind us that we are animals connected to each other in the web of life. When we understand this, we do not hate. He goes on to say that each of these qualities are not always virtues. Each quality has a shadow side. We can love money, be in awe of punishment. We can praise only ourselves, and so on. This is the meaning of the gaunt cows consuming the healthy ones. In other words, a sense of scarcity can cause our best qualities to sour and our shadow side to take over. The mindset of famine consumes the mindset, the mindset of famine consumes the mindset of plenty. We see an element of this even within the Parsha itself. In anticipation of the years of famine, Joseph, who is acting on Pharaoh's behalf, gathers all the extra grain and food produced during the time of plenty. During the time of famine, he sells it back to the people. Because of the system which Joseph sets in place, all of the wealth in Egypt is concentrated in Pharaoh. It leaves everybody else vulnerable, and it's going to be Joseph's own people who suffer when Pharaoh, strengthened by absolute power and wealth, eventually enslaves the Israelites. But we have to look for the tikkun. Dr. Jeremy Benstein, a scholar of Judaism and the environment, notes the connection between the 7-year cycle of plenty and famine and the 7-year cycle of Shemitah, which is described later in the Torah. The mitzvah of Shemitah divides time into cycles of 7 years. For 6 years, we plant and work the land, but in the 7th year, like Shabbat, we let the land rest. We might think then that in the 7th year, we should jealously guard all of the produce and plants that are still growing, but no, we have to share it, letting anyone who is hungry come and eat. We are commanded to open our hands, our fields, and our hearts to those who are in need and to share together in the abundance that God has provided. We have to trust that there is enough for everyone. We practice the mindset of abundance as an antidote, as a tikkun, to the kind of hoarding and profiteering that we know is possible when confronted with scarcity. And also to give those who usually experience food insecurity the feeling of finally having enough. In our own lives, we go through times and seasons of relative scarcity and abundance, of not only material resources, but social and spiritual ones. At times, our self-confidence is high. At times, it is in short supply, and we feel that we ourselves are not enough. Sometimes we feel connected to family and friends. Other times, we feel lonely and unseen. Sometimes we may feel close to God, and other times far away. Some experiences fill us with hope. More often these days, I encounter news which drains me a bit. As I contemplate Pharaoh's nightmare and the ways in which a sense of scarcity can plague us, another image of dreaming and planting comes to mind. Psalm 126, Shir Hamalot, a song of ascents. When God returned the dwelling of Zion, we were like dreamers. The psalm refers to the return of Jews to the land of Israel after the Babylonian exile, but it also seems to refer to a redeemed future, calling on God to continue returning us to the land. The psalm describes an experience of redemption so surreal, it felt like a dream. And as a prelude to Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals, in which we thank God for our many blessings, it's a reminder that there is always something to be grateful for. There is always something we have in abundance. Every time we sing this psalm, we assert Hazorim Bedima Verina Yiktsoru. Those who plant in tears will reap in joy. I don't know that this is always the case, but I do know that the only way you can reap in joy is if you plant something first, even if you're in tears while you do it. Even God does this. In the Shacharit liturgy, we say that God is Zoreh Tzedakot Matzmiach Yeshuot. God plants righteousness and salvation sprouts. Salvation does not happen on its own, it grows out of acts of righteousness. When we find ourselves in a state of depletion, when we can't sleep at night, when we feel that our sense of scarcity is consuming our sense of abundance, we must look for the tikkun. We must ask ourselves, what do I still have? We may find an inner strength that we had not realized we had. We may find friends willing to support us. After all, the tradition teaches that we need 3 friends to transform a bad dream. I know that this community is so rich in care and acts of chesed, loving kindness. When we find that abundance, we're able to tap into the best part of ourselves, our capacity for gratitude, for compassion, and for giving. We can plant seeds of righteousness for a future of safety and peace and justice, where everyone has enough. Shabbat shalom.